This is really beautiful. Not only one of the greatest chefs is here trying my food, also I'm gonna try his food. This is amazing.
The idea, please understand, is not to use your hands to eat. You got to lick my plate.
Oh no.
Use your tongue.
Licking plate is nothing new to me.
I want to do this real quick, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay. There's a base here with jasmine cream, and on top, flowers and fruits from around the world that were edible to create that rainbow. It takes days of drying, so it's a very complicated dish.
It's very good.
I think the concept is interesting, and I'm obviously tasting it and enjoying it and the experience, but there's definitely some chefs that are just lapping it up.
Oh, I love the dish. So iconically Gaggan. This is like the Willy Wonka scene where every single time you licked a different color, it was a different flavor. Blueberry, hibiscus, tropical flavors.
Right. It's in your beard.
You can taste that it's not like a gimmick.
Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I am again your host, Rich Herrera. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. You have a lot of pods to choose from, and I thank you for choosing this one. A couple of program reminders. Again, we're going to continue our weekly Top Chef recaps, so join me and Chef Kenny as we break them down. And also, I'm going to be starting a new series called Eat Your Content Refire. So this is going to be a fun little series where we go back and look at some foodie films from the past, and me and some foodie friends will get together and talk about it and kind of, give our takes on it. So that'll be a little break from the Top Chef recaps. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on socials. Follow EYC at Rich Herrera on Instagram and on Facebook. So again, welcome to the pod, Chef Kenny, a.k.a. Kanji McGee, which I think I'm going to call you that from now on. Kanji McGee. It just rolls right off the tongue. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. You are coming off fresh from your appearance. Well, I say fresh. It was filmed sometime last year, but fresh off the appearance of Alex versus America on Food Network. So we're going to start and talk about that for just a little bit before we dive into Top Chef. So if you haven't seen Alex versus America on Food Network, it's kind of a cross between Chopped and Beat Bobby Flay. There's different things you have to choose from. You choose an ingredient, you choose the type of cuisine you're going to make, and then it's all up against Alex Guarnaschelli for money. Alex could win, may not win. Everything's blind taste tested, so it's an interesting show. And Kenny, you went on and you fought valiantly, but unfortunately it was not to be. You didn't quite make it all the way through. You made it through the first round, made it, and didn't quite make it through the second round. So let's talk about that a little bit. It was chicken, so I don't want to say battle chicken because it's kind of Iron Chefy, but the chicken was the main ingredient. And I thought it was interesting. The very first thing you guys chose from in the first round, the survivor round, was the type of chicken, and they had a silky chicken on there. And I thought that was appropriate because you are the chef and owner of Silky's in Jacksonville, named after that kind of chicken. So, yeah, how hard was it to talk? You wanted to do the silky chicken. Nobody else wanted to do it. So, what was that? What was that like trying to convince people and then finally just, saying, okay, I'll do what you guys want to do?
It it was interesting because I wanted to do something that, obviously not everyone's gonna be used to seeing versus just, regular chicken or the capon. And the bluefoot's not a regular chicken, but they were all three specially, birds. I would have wished to and wanted to actually go with the silky chicken, obviously. Because I've worked with it a bunch of times. I mean, I've cooked a bunch of chicken, so it's not like it was anything brand new. But yeah, I wanted to, to give the viewers something special to look at that was not normal. Like I thought that would have been more fun to cook the silky chicken.
Yeah. So what did you make in that first round again? Describe the dish that you made there.
So I did I made congee, with some jasmine rice. I ground it up and cooked it with coconut milk and had some lemongrass and ginger. It was, very, very, very fragrant, kind of some Thai flavors. I marinated the chicken breast. I removed the breast and made a and brined it really quickly and sous vide it at the same time. It had like a lot of, kind of, Asian, aromatics. It had like ponzu and there was some lemongrass and some ginger, a little sesame oil, hot mustard oil, because I wanted the flavors to really penetrate as it was cooking. So the best way to do it was while I was in the circulator. And then I went ahead and fried it. I did a gochujang honey drizzle over it. The congee is basically a rice porridge. That was kind of the canvas that had a lot of flavor. And then we had to use one of the eggs. The egg option was we used a 100-year-old egg or fermented egg, and I made an aioli with that. So that way you had a little creamy, nice little fermented pockets of that creamy egg on top, and then a bunch of other little vegetable garnishes. The tomatoes with a little ginger, ponzu dressing, steamed, baby bok choy leaves, just some shaved truffle. There was a truffle ponzu that went on it as well. So the theme was a fine dining type dish, and you had to use, we had to pick the chicken, and we had to have a special egg that went with it.
Yep. Yeah, it looked really good, and you made it through that first round there. They really enjoyed the dish. The guy that got eliminated made a chicken taco, but unfortunately didn't quite make it through. And then it's you and Chef Zoe, who's also known for fried chicken, and then it's Chef Alex Warnishelli for the money round and kind of decide who the winner is. And yeah, so you made a chicken nudie dish, which I thought looked great, and you cooked everything in chicken. But some of the comments at the end from the judges, and the judges were Jet Tila and some guy I've never seen before. I don't know who that dude is. But they said it was more of a nudie dish than a chicken dish, but you cooked the nudie in schmaltz, right? You had schmaltz in the nudie.
Yeah. So when I added schmaltz actually in the ricotta dumpling dough, so that actually every bite you were going to get the chicken fat in there. And then after I blanched it off, I seared it in chicken fat. So every bite you were getting chicken. We had to use the soup, canned, chicken noodle soup. So I took that soup and I pureed it and then passed it through a chinois. And then I basically added olive oil and lemon and garlic and basil, olives, piquilla peppers, fennel, and I cooked it down really, really slow. And then I sous vide the chicken again. So the whole idea of the sous vide was, one, penetrating the marinade that I put in there, which was like an arugula pesto, because the theme was a mild spice for the preparation. So I made sure that it was, I wanted to make sure that it was not spicy, but it had good flavor. So that's why I went the Mediterranean route. Otherwise, I would have gone something a lot more aggressive. And so I took the pepperiness of the arugula and made a pesto to marinate the chicken in, threw that in the circulator. So while I was working on my other things like the nudie, I knew that, okay, the chicken was already 75% cooked, and I had to just get a nice char on the grill.
Right. And I guess they were saying, that it wasn't chicken forward enough. And I'm guessing they meant the actual pieces of chicken, because things were cooked in chicken. But I don't know. I guess they didn't feel like they got enough chicken.
It's weird because I didn't put a big fried chicken leg on top of a biscuit. You know what I mean? Like I was cooking, and every bite I actually, had chicken in it, because I grilled the chicken leg, cut some of the leg meat off, and then chopped it up, and then put it in with the broth. So basically, as you're getting a bite, you're getting chunks of chicken. And then I also had the boned out chicken leg that was grilled, that was on top as well. So that way you're getting like a smokiness and grilled flavor, complementing, that rich soup. Because, we had to use the soup, the chicken noodle soup as a base. Yeah. And so I wanted to really be aggressive with that, and to show that how you can make something delicious by taking that base. And then, so like every bite you were getting was use of every ingredient perfectly. But I didn't give them a big chunk of chicken, with a sauce of, but whatever.
Well, you can't win them all. So let's count your Food Network appearances, right? So you won Cutthroat Kitchen back in the day, and then you also beat Bobby Flay. Alex versus America was the recent one. So you're 2-1. You're 2-1. You're still
On Food Network, yeah, for sure.
it's still a winning average on Food Network appearances. Well, you got Guys Grocery Games, you got Chopped, you got it'll come, man. Don't sweat it. But it was a good appearance. It was fun. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. I was watching on social media, and a lot of your followers were having a good time and posting about it. So,
Yeah.
And it comes out right when your cookbook was coming out. That was serendipitous. So,
Yeah,
you couldn't promote it on the show, but at least your name was out there alongside with the cookbook.
and representing Jacksonville. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think what's amazing is the fact that you're representing your state, and the fact that it has my name, and then Jacksonville, Florida, and then Silky's Chicken and Champagne Bar. I mean, I'm constantly repping this city as much as I possibly can, and it feels good that you'd be on a national stage like that and have the opportunity to showcase my talent and my ability for the city.
Yeah, that's awesome, and Jacksonville's better for it. So, again, congrats on the appearance. Sorry you didn't win, but another day, another time.
No problem.
Hey, look, don't feel bad. You can't win them all.
You ready to talk about Top Chef?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's get right into it. So I'm going to jump right in because there's kind of a lot to talk about. There's a lot of themes in play with this episode and a lot of really interesting things. So I'm going to jump right into the quickfire. The guest judge for the quickfire is Gaggan Anand, which was featured on Netflix's Chef's Table series, and everybody is starstruck. I mean, everybody walks in and goes, "Oh my God, is that Gaggan Anand?" They're whispering, "Is that Gaggan? Is that Gaggan Anand?" And he is probably one of the most influential chefs working today. Number 5 restaurant in Asia, according to the world's best 50 list. He is a pioneer of molecular gastronomy. He's actually known for his emoji tasting menu. It's a 25-course tasting menu, all based around emojis, which is fun and whimsical, and that comes into play here. In fact, this whole episode essentially was around Gaggan's concept of not just the emoji dish, but as we look at to the elimination challenge later on, eating a course without utensils, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So the challenge was to choose an emoji and create a dish inspired by it. So the chefs are presented with this huge board of emojis, and they had about 20 or so to pick from. And so the concept of this was Gaggan was creating a menu in 2016, and he was typing out on his iPad. And when you type things on an iPad or on an iPhone, sometimes a suggested emoji will pop up. So that happened, and his wheels immediately started turning, and then he created a 25-course meal based on all the emojis that were available to him. So that's the concept of this quickfire. So the winner gets immunity, and they had 30 minutes on the clock. So what did you think about the guest judge? Because I think that I'm kind of thinking back, this is probably the most high-profile guest judge they've had in a minute. So what did you think of the overall concept of it, and then Gaggan himself?
I've seen him on the on Netflix in the series, and he's had one of the best restaurants in the world, and his approach to food is his artistic approach. I think is amazing. I think what's interesting is that you're bringing in a chef that is kind of like the more the rock star hipster in terms of the philosophy of how you eat, eating with your senses and different things, and when you look at the Ferran Andreas and the Jose Andreas and the Michael Vatagios and a lot of these different chefs that really have you think one way in terms of the dish, in terms of what you assume for an appearance, but then the flavor is exactly the way it's supposed to be, but it looks totally different. There's some of these people that really have a very unique artistic approach about that, and I thought it was a great challenge. I mean, they're over in London. You're in the land of many Michelin star restaurants and some of the best chefs cooking from around the world. They're able to use that expression. I think it's great that they're able to do that, and they're highlighting that. I thought it was a very exciting challenge in an episode.
Yeah, I thought it was really neat to watch. And this entire episode was actually confined to the Top Chef kitchen. There was no special field trips. It really wasn't a Britain-based anything on this one. It was just
Yeah.
showcase your creativity, go nuts. This was pretty much
Hmm.
free reign on whatever they wanted to do, which I think a
Yeah.
lot of chefs definitely took advantage of. So, there were some interesting emojis. I think Nicole got the disguised emoji. So, what you were talking about, trying to make something different look like something else. One thing was interesting. Ali got the 4-leaf clover emoji symbolizing luck, but he didn't understand that it was a 4-leaf clover. It was a he called it a leaf emoji, so he just made something like really herbaceous. And it
Yeah.
was interesting because Gaggan's concept of this menu was the universal language of emojis, and I thought, well, not all emojis are universal apparently, and the
Yeah.
4-leaf clover didn't translate. So you had some fun emojis going on. So the winner though was Buddha, which you could tell he was like a kid in a sandbox with this challenge,
Yeah.
and it was funny that he brought molds with him. We're going to find out later on that he brought $1,000 worth of molds with him on this trip, and I'm just thinking. I remember you said in a previous pod that yeah, when you get the information, you're only allowed to bring certain things. Apparently, on the special All Star episode, you can bring whatever you wanted to bring, and he brought $1,000 worth of molds, and he featured one of his molds on the quickfire, which was the skull, the skull mold, and his emoji was the freezing emoji, the blue kind of smiley face or teeth chattering freezing. So his dish was freezing myself to death. It was frozen coconut water, coconut cream, coconut sorbet with damson plum and candied ginger. He formed it into the shape of that skull, and the puree beneath it was a raspberry and damson puree for quote unquote a bit of gore. And this was right up his alley, and it was fun watching him cook in this particular challenge. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw what he played it, I was like, yeah, this is. I was curious to see how he was going to flex. I was curious to see what his dish was going to look like, and it looked great. It looked great.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. I like fun food. I like when I saw that plate. If I had that in front of me, I would just kind of stare at it for a minute because I'm like, this is really cool looking. And then as you dug into it and you get the quote unquote bit of gore and all the different flavors that comes with that, that's
Mm.
fun. I like whimsy, I like fun, and in some of my dishes, and that was definitely both. So, Buddha wins the quickfire challenge, so he gets immunity in the next challenge, which is probably a good thing for him. We'll talk about later on. So we go right into the elimination challenge. There's not really a break in there. They finish that and they go right into the elimination challenge. And they present. Everybody gets a cloche, and they're all wondering, "Ooh, what's going on? What's this mysterious thing?" They pull the cloche, and they're presented with one of Gaggan's signature dishes, which is called Rainbow World. It's a map of the world made with jasmine cream paste, and on top of the cream is a rainbow of colors made with dried fruits and flowers from around the world. So Gaggan said it takes him like, I think he said 3 days or something to cook this dish because he has to dry everything out and create a dust with it. Um, and this is not eaten with any utensils. You lick it up. And so the challenge was to make a dish that sends a message, is visually stunning, and can be eaten without utensils. So the message behind Gaggan's Rainbow World dish was during COVID, he saw that there was a lot of hate on social media, still is, but I digress. A lot of hate on social media, and he wanted to spread a message of love on his plate, especially to the LGBT community as a rainbow. So this is the result of that. So he combines that with one of his other dishes from his emoji uh, tasting menu called Lick It Up, and you lick it up with your tongue. So this is a really interesting challenge. Create a dish that sends a message, visually stunning, can be eaten without utensils. You get 90 minutes for the day one cook, and then an hour 45 for day two. So when you heard this challenge, again, what are the challenges that the chefs are running into here to make this food with those kind of three criteria?
Um, I think that it's you're having to come up with one the flavor you want to achieve, and then how is that going to be represented in terms of eating it with your hands, or licking it up. It's like, how do you eat this where it's just like it's just very sensual hands, and and I think that if you're not used to cooking, in that manner, then it might be something a little different. Like I think Sarah's approach was great. I think some of the chefs, I think some things they didn't think through, but I think that the challenge is really like, hey, uh, what can I do if I want to eat with my hands and I'm gonna pick something up, get a bite that's all encompassing. What is that flavor gonna be like? I mean, I would have immediately started thinking, I would have thought, like a lotus, shiso leaves, and something wrapped in that, where you have it all mixed up, or betel leaves, and then you kind of just you're dragging a sauce. If you think about the African culture, like Ethiopian, injera bread, or some kind of crepe with some kind of braised sauce that you kind of slopping up, because the whole idea is a very sensual aspect of like kind of just dipping and eating with your hands, which a lot of cultures do. If you think about West African, fufu, in the different, the palm nut soups, where you're kind of taking that fufu and kind of making a dimple in it, and as you scoop, you're kind of getting the broth and eating with the meat with your hands. So it's not a far cry, from, it's not necessarily a hard thing, but it's like, what is going to be like, how do you bring it all together where it basically represents your culture and your food, and making it whimsical and beautiful. That's a key thing. They knew that this is a challenge where they all got a chance to really flex and do whatever they wanted, express yourself the way you want. What is your passion? So I think it's amazing. I think it was like gloves off, do what you got to do. It was fun watching it.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, a lot of cultures have specific foods or types of cuisines that you eat with your hands. Even as a Filipino, there's a Filipino dish, or I don't want to say dish, but an event really called a kamayan, where everything is laid out on the table with banana leaves, and you're eating with your hands, and it's just a fun time of gathering. So yeah, I think if you think about the challenge, it really was just go crazy, like go nuts. And one thing that I found funny when I was watching the interview pieces as they were describing the rainbow world, and like I said, the chefs are starstruck. Dale was interesting. He said, I think the concept is interesting, and I'm obviously tasting and enjoying it and the experience, but there's definitely some chefs that are just lapping it up. And then the immediate cut to Buddha, who's waxing poetic about the dish, how it's iconically Gaggan, and compares it to Willy Wonka. And so interesting to have that two dichotomies. And as I was watching this, Dale and Buddha kind of represent two camps of this type of um, fine dining, where Gaggan, he's charging $600 a person for a 25 course meal, and my wife was watching. She's like, "That is the most pretentious thing I've ever seen in my life." And I'm not so far on Buddha's end, but I thought, oh, this would be fun. I'd enjoy that. It'd be a good time. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So it's interesting. You have two. It almost reminded me of, have you ever seen the movie The Menu with Ray Fiennes, kind of a satire of fine dining and those that I don't know, kind of worship at the altar of fine dining. It kind of reminded me of that. It was really interesting. But you do have some people that think fine dining like this is pretentious, and then you have those that look at it as it's art. It's art, just like painting is art, just like songwriting is an art, just like anything is an art. Just your medium is food and plates.
Yeah,
What
no,
did you think of
absolutely.
that dichotomy?
I was very fortunate in my younger years. I went and trained over in Barcelona, Spain, and I ate at a lot of 2 and 1 star Michelin restaurants, and I trained at a 2-star Michelin restaurant in Palma Mallorca, and a restaurant called Cold Arroyo. And so I remember being over there and just seeing the art that was being represented, and they still had a very focused and centered idea of food, and where in textures and flavors and technique. And so I remember coming back and working in the dining room and looking at how do I incorporate some of these, because it's really, there's techniques. How do I add this technique, these new techniques and style of cooking into my repertoire? And so I adapted some things that I liked, that I felt would match with my style of food. And so I think it's great. I think some people will do too much of it, and sometimes you can kind of get lost in the hydrocloids of textures and temperatures and different things. I think some things have a place, and I think some things nowadays are a lot more balanced. I'm a more purist. I like to give me a bunch of food that is that you took time and effort to cook, not necessarily always to manipulate. But I think it's the interpretation of the artist, and so I have a lot of respect for it. I mean, I just had an amazing dinner last night at Rue St. Mark. Scott Crawford came down from Raleigh, North Carolina. Did a tasting menu, like 6-course tasting menu. It was 100 and it was basically a $200 dinner. And it was amazing. It was and he had different levels of technique throughout the menu. A lot of it was just home, just very good balanced cooking. I love it as a chef. I'm not eating that like that all the time. But those special occasions, those come in those once in a lifetime dinners. I mean, I ate with Jose Andres at Cafe Atlantico, the mini bar. I've eaten there 3 times. There's 35 course menus, and when you have 35, and then to be able to have 35 courses and then leave where you're full and satisfied and all your senses have been enlivened, is an amazing experience. And so you have to really think things through in terms of balance and progression. And I used to be when I was in that world, I was really good at doing multiple course dinners, 10 and 20 course meals. But when you go into 35 and 40, it's a lot, and to have that patience and that discipline it's an art. And so I respect anyone that basically has the platform and the canvas and to be able to do it, because it takes a special person and skill set to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Rue St. Mark, because Rue St. Mark is a terrific French restaurant in downtown Jacksonville. If you guys come down to Jacksonville, definitely check it out. They have something called the Rue Experience, where it's a 5-course tasting menu, but very accessibly priced. I think it's like, last I went, it was like $75 a person or something, really accessible. I think they do have that balance between approachable fine dining, and it was one that my wife enjoyed. We went for our anniversary one year, took my mom there for Mother's Day. So it's definitely a special occasion place, but it's approachable, and they do a really great job of doing that fine dining type of thing without being pretentious. So definitely go check out Rue St. Mark if you haven't yet. But yeah, I saw where you went there last night, and I was like, wow, that looks great. That looks great.
Yeah, it's nice.
So getting back to the challenge, so they say go, and off to the races they go. And Dale is, I don't know what Dale was quite thinking. He said, he had a quote, "Never judge food until you really, really taste the authentic version." And to illustrate that, he was talking about mole. Like, he's ignorant. He was ignorant about mole, and then tasted it, and then just like changed his life. But he only made mole a couple of times, and he decides, on this challenge, I'm going to make a mole. And my message is, don't judge food. And a couple of things crossed my mind. I'm like, is a food competition the time where you want to cook something that you haven't really done a whole lot? And authentic is kind of a loaded word. So he was kind of going in there going, yeah, I'm not an expert on Mexican food, but I'm going to cook Mexican food. And a lot of people can be like, you probably ought not be doing that. Then you're going to disrespect the culture. You're going to disrespect you're going to make yourself look silly. You're disrespecting the culture. And this is right after Gabri made a kick-ass, mole, 3-4 episodes ago. So I wasn't really for sure what was going on in his head when you heard that and you saw that. Did you think anything like that, or were you like, all right, you do you?
It's interesting. Like a Richard Blaze, he made a point of saying, like, when he was competing on Top Chef and Top Chef All Stars, that every time he did a dish, he did something that he had never done before. That was his goal. He wanted to push himself to the limit. Once you have a level of skill set in your cooking, you have confidence in your ability to be able to do certain things, and it doesn't. And you will. Some people could push themselves to the limit. I think there's a lot of chefs that are like that. And some are going to be a little bit more like, hey, I'm gonna go the safe route in terms of their ability. I mean, hell, I was thinking about when I was did a show that I just did the other day, like, or several months ago, but that aired the other day. When I was going into the challenge, I was like, what can I do that's going to be something that's going to be challenging? Someone else is going to think the degree of difficulty is very high, but for me, it's not that bad because I can get a lot of things done in a short amount of time. It's all, you got to be confident in your ability, and sometimes the challenges they're going to come up where they're going to put a different cuisine in front of you that you've never done before. They did that on my season. I remember Kevin Sprague, he had to cook a style of food. I think it was Thai. And he had never cooked Thai food before in his life, no, it was Indian. Sorry, he never cooked Indian food in his life. And he didn't know how to do curry. He was asking one, like, man, like, what do you do with curry? Like, I don't cook curry. I'm classical French and Italian, and so sometimes when you understand, technique, if you have an idea of it, then, it's maybe a little less risky. Dale already, I think, kind of already psyched himself out and in. I think he was kind of like in the middle. It's like, I'm going to try. I don't know why he would try something that was, I think mole made a lot of sense because of the flavors, how it was going to be impactful on the palate. But if you've never done it, you only did it a couple of times, I mean, that may not have been the right move, but he went for it. What did he have? He didn't have anything else to lose,
Yeah, that's true. So this is where we see one of Buddha's $1,000 worth of molds, and he brings out a mold that is I don't know, open hands, kind of like the Allstate logo, I guess. Like the Allstate holding hands there, and he's just going nuts with this, and it was really fun to watch. He is. I think he in the elimination challenge, he got in his head a little bit because he was cooking for Gaggan. He was cooking for, he was doing his style of cuisine, which, the molecular gastronomy, and he was like, I want to make sure he likes my food, and I'm going to pull out all these tricks and things like that. But yeah, so, what did you think watching him and pulling out all these molds and different things that he was doing?
It's like a kid in a candy store, like he's going for it. He's gonna push the envelope. I mean, he wanted to do the best job he possibly could, and he wanted to show as many techniques as he possibly could in one dish. Which may have been a little bit more aggressive. One of the hardest things to do, and I'm guilty of it as well. When you start thinking of self-editing, it takes a lot of restraint because you can go really, really simple, and then you can go a little bit too far. And then sometimes you got to be right in the middle. And that one thing that, where it's like, all right, well, I want to have balance. And this acid, this, the salt, the spice, the umami, like all these different, flavors and tastes, you want to have something represented when you get that good, like just, oh my God, this orgasmic bite. And sometimes, taking one thing out would have been okay. And it's like, but would have been really okay. Like it's again, it goes to self-interpretation, And so I think that, let it fly. I mean, he was like, it's like Happy Gilmore going up there and letting it rip. It's like everyone was he was just going for it, which I respect.
Yeah, he was definitely shooting for the stars on that one. And so the challenge being eat with your hands, a few chefs took to classic street foods that you eat with your hands as inspiration. So Victoire was making an akara. So it's originally from Nigeria. It's a common street food made of mashed black-eyed peas, formed into a ball and fried. Nicole is digging into her Asian culture and was making, and I'm going to mispronounce this, a jianbing pancake, which is a popular street food in China, made with a thin batter spread quickly on a flat hot plate. And then she was going to stuff it and roll it up. She called it a Chinese burrito, which I thought, was a little bit easier to understand. But Chinese burrito, I thought that was pretty funny. And then Gabri was making al pastor taco, but using fish instead of pork. Also found it funny because his message was about transgenic corn. And this man loved corn. And it was funny because when they played it on Top Chef, they did the whole kind of fade in, fade out montage of him talking about corn. So it made it seem like, I don't know how long he was actually talking about corn, but it made it seem like he was going on and on and on about corn.
Gabriel, what is your message?
The food sovereignty.
My message is celebrating sustainable agriculture and organic corn.
96% of the corn that is produced and consumed in the world is transgenic. I rather use, organic and Creole corn. My uncle grows Creole and organic corn. The corn. The transgenic corn doesn't work. It's not nutritious.
Shut up! My God. I love you, you know.
And finally, Victoire looks over to him and says, "Shut up! Shut up talking about corn." And I was like, "Oh, that is so funny." Like that's normally safe for an interview behind the scenes piece, but she actually turned to him and said, "Will you shut up about corn?" And then says, "You know I love you. You know I love you, Gabby." But yeah, so street food I think is an easy thing to kind of get inspiration from for this type of challenge. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I wish you'd have gone for something other than a taco, because it's so like, like, okay, it's a taco. But that was his inspiration, so it is what it is. I mean, street food, definitely you can, because you're eating with your hands. I mean, finger foods, that's the whole idea about this challenge also. But I think the artistic approach is something you have to take a look at, to make it where it's manipulated a little bit, where it's a lot of thought into it, where it's not the norm. I think, but again, everyone. That's the thing about Top Chef. It's like whatever the challenge is, like some people just get into their own head, and did they really understand the challenge? Are they really getting it? As many examples they can talk about, sometimes you can go too far.
Yeah, how hard is it as a competitor when you're in these challenges and you have kind of a train of thought going? How hard is it to, you're halfway into it and you finding it hard to shift gears? We didn't see any of that in this particular episode, but I have seen in other episodes where you're so focused on, okay, I'm going to make this thing, and then you realize halfway through it's not going to work, but you still it's almost like a time sink fallacy. You spend all this time in it. I can't turn back now. I got to keep going. So,
Well, I think you have to stick to your guns, and a lot of times I think that's what ends up happening. I think the things will trip you up is if you can't find an ingredient to make it all come together. And that's usually is the biggest pain, is like, you're like going like, oh yeah, I want to do this kataffi wrapped goat cheese to go with this strawberry rhubarb compote with some arugula, whatever. And then all of a sudden you can't find it. Then you go into like, you gotta do a panko. That's what happened to me on my elimination challenge. I wanted to do like this warm goat cheese as a course, back on Top Chef, and the panko didn't translate as well as, and it was a warm goat cheese, which I've done before, and it just didn't translate like it would have if it would have been in this kind of this almost like a Rice Krispie, not Rice Krispie, like a shredded wheat kind of texture, and that can trip you up, and that's what happens a lot of times. It's like sometimes you got to shift gears 100% versus like just going into second or third. You're like, oh, I wanted to do this, but this is what happened. Can you describe what you wanted to do? And they're like, oh my God, that would have been amazing. Why didn't you do that? I'm like, well, because I couldn't find any kataffi. They're like, oh, well, you should have done something else. You know what I mean? It's like, well, hindsight is 2020. That's why I'm going home. So.
Right.
Kenny, please pack your knives and go.
All right. Thank you.
So let's get right into judges' table. So the top three, the Middle East is representing a lot of great dishes here, but the top three were Charbel, Ali, and Amar. Amar being from the U.S. but has a Middle Eastern heritage, and Ali and Charbel both from the Middle East. So even when they were lined up right there, like, yeah, Middle East represents. So that was pretty cool. So Charbel made a labna with confit garlic, za'atar paste, tomato puree, chili oil, and a phyllo cracker. I wish I could do a video clip of this because it's really hard to describe this for just, listening with your ears, and you can't see it with your eyes. But he spread the purees and the paste onto the plate to make it look like a Lebanese flag. So it had the colors of the Lebanese flag where Charbel is from. And the phyllo cracker was cut into the shape of a cedar tree, which is what's in the middle of the Lebanese flag. So his message was to bring awareness to his country, to his people, the violence that's going on in his country right now, and that it's, life is hard there, and he just wants to bring attention to Lebanon. And so the concept was, it was basically like three pastes and purees spread on a plate, and you take the phyllo cracker and you spread it across all three, and then you take a bite. So that's kind of like what you were talking about before, is you have that and you take this really good bite of everything and you just kind of keep dipping, and each time you swipe it through something, it tastes a little bit different because you're getting different purees and different combinations. So what were your thoughts on Charbel's dish?
We hired a chef at one of my restaurants down in Miami, and he's Israeli, and I just had his labna the other day, and it's a bunch of his spreads and dips and everything. And I immediately, when I'm watching that, I'm looking at that plate, I'm imagining the flavors and the textures and everything, and I was right there at that moment, and I could see how that translated very, very well. As simple as some of those ingredients are, the marriage of the putting them together is a little bit more complex, and to tie a story into it, I think was beautiful. But I was transported right to the moment when I was actually having his name is Ofer. It's a new chef at one of our restaurants, Glass and Vine, and I remember just I was immediately at that moment like I couldn't stop eating, and so I was looking at what he was doing. I was like, this looks absolutely amazing.
That's cool. That's cool. So interesting. You had a recent experience that you kind of could relate it to. So that's fun.
Yeah.
So Ali made a mushroom kibbeh, a chickpea mousse, and pickled grape leaves. It's plated on just an obscene amount of greenery, which apparently he got from the stew room, which I thought was hilarious. I thought they were joking, but I guess they weren't. Somebody said, "Are those the plants from the green room or from the stew room?" So I mean, inspiration strikes anywhere, right? So his message was. Climate change, and he poured some kind of like water that created steam, and it was representative of the ice caps melting. And he went all vegan because he said part of climate change is being able to eat less meat, right? Because of the process it takes to slaughter animals. It's horrible for the environment, and we're in the Middle East, it's a very meat-centric culture. So he made a dish that would usually be lamb, lots and lots of lamb, and he made it with mushrooms. So the judges appreciated the message, especially coming from a meat-centric culture. I thought it was, when I looked at it, I was kind of like, that's a lot going on that plate. I think for me, the greenery that was all around it was just kind of a little much for me. But according to the judges, they thought it was great. I think the message behind it, this is where storytelling, I think, can enhance a dish. We eat with our eyes and we eat obviously with our taste buds, but when you hear a story behind it, you get a new appreciation for what's presented in front of you. So thoughts on Ali's dish?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you can tell your story and it can translate and it's executed properly and the flavors are where it needs to be, that's what it all boils down to. It's like the craveability of it. Like, how craveable is this? How is it like you want to just keep eating every bite? I think that's the key. It's the right amount of spice and salt and acid and just texture. When you start hitting all those notes, and that's when you actually have something magical. And I think he was able to achieve that.
Yeah. And then Amar, I think Amar's was probably my favorite, at least in looks. It looked great. He did a seafood sausage wrapped in green papaya, peanut and tomato purees, dehydrated herbs, and toasted peanuts. So it was again, trying to describe it here, it was laid out in kind of a rectangular form with the purees being dotted all across the dish. It kind of reminded me of those. Do you remember those old fashioned candy buttons that you used to get at like Cracker Barrel or something like that? It looked like that. It looked like a strip of candy buttons, which was kind of neat. Again, that whimsy and that fun in that has brought me back to that old childhood candy. So the concept was you take the green papaya wrapped sausage and you sweep it across all the purees, herbs, and toasted peanuts, and you pick it up and eat it. And the concept was that it was supposed to be like, it was inspired by a Thai papaya salad. Had all the flavors of a Thai papaya salad, but in a completely different form. And his message behind that was the best way to know about a people's culture is to travel, which I'm in huge agreement with. You travel around the world and you just look at different cultures and appreciate where they're coming from. But I liked his dish, one for the whimsy of it, the playfulness of it, and that the judges thought, that he needs to put that dish on his menu at his restaurant. So what did you think about Amar?
I love how he got out of his comfort zone, and he even said, he goes, man, I would never, I never cook like this ever. Like, this is like totally not me. Like, I would want to do something a lot bigger, a lot more robust, but they showed a picture of him when he was traveling in Thailand. He was riding an elephant, and and he went to that moment, and he was being very aggressive, also cooking a Thai dish, for Gaggan, who lives in Thailand. I mean, like, which he went for it. Again, he went for it, but he was confident enough because he knows that he's been over there. I'm confident enough in Thai as well because I've trained and eaten with, in Thai with Lake and and her sons and her husband. I've known them the last 25 plus years, and eating in their food and having being educated, I would feel very confident too. And I'm happy that he was that confident. That one, he was confident in the flavors. Two, the presentation was stunning, and the way that he understood the assignment to be able to pick it up and drag it and finish up in the nuts and get that bite, and then know what that type of papaya salad is supposed to taste like. Again, it transported me to my, in my cookbook, I have a Thai collard green salad. I took out the papaya, and I put in a chiffonade of collard greens, and it's like taking a southern ingredient, but making sure the flavors are very, very Thai with everything goes in it. And he did exactly the same thing, and I thought it was, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, so I thought so too. Now the judges, the overall winner was Ali, and it's his third win of the season. This is the first time I think I disagreed with the judges. I personally thought Amar should have won that dish.
Yeah.
Ali out of the top three was my third. I thought if Amar should have won, and then Charbel, and then Ali. But I wasn't sitting there eating the food, so I don't know. But just from looking at it, I thought, man, I thought Amar, you got this in the bag. That's so cool and playful, and but he didn't win. It's all right. But Ali's his third win. You got to look out for this guy. He is, rising up the ranks and being a formidable challenge there. So let's talk about the bottom. Actually, before we talk about that, the two that I thought should have excelled in this challenge, unfortunately, did not. Tom and Buddha. This was right in their wheelhouse. And Tom was doing something pretty ambitious. We're going to talk about that because he's on the bottom. And Buddha was just kind of, I guess he rode the middle. He had immunity, so he wasn't going to go home anyway, but he wasn't in the top three either. So I just thought the two people, especially with Buddha coming off of his win with the quickfire challenge, should have been in the top three. And then the two that do molecular gastronomy all the time wasn't even in the running. Did that surprise you too?
Well, think of it like this. Flavor always wins. You know what I'm saying? Like, cooking technique, flavor always wins. All three of those dishes had high acid, spice, texture, herbaceousness, and there was no in spice, and it had left a lingering flavor on your palate. That's always gonna win. I don't care what you do. It's gonna be the lasting impression. You think about the last couple of dishes that I've won, they've been Mediterranean, Middle Eastern type flavors that basically are coating the palates. That the use of spices and herbs and acid and texture are on top. It's always gonna win. I think about all the different episodes that I've won and challenges I did. It was very, the spices and the layers of flavors were very pronounced and somewhat identifiable for the culture, and done well. The ones that, you put up a dish that might be very, very French and maybe very neutral tone and maybe technically perfect, but is that going to be the one you want to go back and get another bite? No, you want to get another bite of the labna, or the kofta with the spice, or the Thai. You're going to be like, those are very, very addictive, craveable, cultures and flavors. And so sometimes you're coming in, if you have a lot of French influence versus, something that might be middle of the road, it could be an Irish dish, and it's just like, potatoes and meat, and it could be cooked well. If it's not going to beat a dish in terms of memorability, in terms of spice and in those kind of flavors compared to some of these other cultures. It's just not, I don't care what you do. It's gonna be, what is gonna be the most memorable? It's gonna be lingering. Perfect example, if the only other dish I would have been able to compete up in that, if someone did something like a beautiful adobo dish. Think about how craveable adobo is, right? The acid, the peppercorn, the garlic, the bay leaf, the vinegar, like and then you add the fat if it was like a pork belly, or a good chicken fat, or a duck leg or whatever, and then if there's perfect rice that went with it, that you put a garlic rice with that, you can't. It hits you back here. It hits you in all your taste buds. You're gonna be like, oh my God, I want to keep eating this. I want to keep eating this. You know what I mean? And that's what you have to put on the plate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what it looks like. If it doesn't taste good, it's not going to taste good. And you're right with with adobo, being Filipino. I love adobo, and it's I try to eat it faster than my stomach can tell my brain I'm full. It's that kind of food to eat. So. Yeah, so let's talk about the bottom. The bottom three here, you had Dale, which his message was don't be ignorant, and then he tries to go and make a mole. Funnily enough, his mole, they said, was fine. So he made a roasted chicken thigh with corn custard, mole, pineapple, pickled jalapeno, and nuts. So the process was to drag the chicken thigh through the chicken thigh piece through the corn custard and the mole and eat it. So he did good on the mole, but where you would think he would have made okay, the chicken thigh was flabby and needed salt. And it doesn't matter how good the rest of it is, if if the vehicle to carry that thing isn't good, then it does ruin the whole experience. And Gail said, he was trying something that was really new to him, and I thought, yeah, that probably wasn't the best time to pull that out. So, he did okay on the mole, but I think he concentrated on it so much that he forgot about everything else. What do you think?
Yeah, sometimes that's how it goes. I mean, he would have been better off making like a homemade tortilla or like some kind of corn crepe or something unique that he was able to drag that mole up and get that bite. I think that would have been the better choice than even a protein. You know what I mean? Like, because you put so much effort in the mole. Some of these moles, they don't, all they're going to have is a little tortilla, to eat it with, that's made with a special corn or whatever. Like, he didn't have to go with a protein like that. And so that I think that's interesting that, he could have put more emphasis on the technique of the chicken. Like, what was the point of it? Because the highlight was the mole. I don't know. Obviously it didn't go over well.
Didn't quite work out. Yeah. Now, Victoire, she was at judge's table for being on the bottom, and the first thing out of any of the judge's mouth was Gaggan saying, "I like your socks." And that the rest of this judging is going to go downhill after that. It reminds me, because I'm a call center manager, right? And my day job, so being a podcaster is not my day job, but I'm a call center manager, and when you're doing performance reviews and you're just trying to find something nice to say about this person that is completely failing at their job, you're like, your hair looks really good today. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well for Victoire. And so she made a cassava cannoli with textures of roots, white potato and bacon cream, pineapple and mango sauce. Her message was to look at Africa through the lens of its food and not just as like a safari. Africa can be known for its food, and it is. But the judges thought that the dish was trying to ride the line between sweet and savory, because what she made, her street food, could be sweet, could be savory, but she didn't do well on either one. She should have just went with one or the other. And then the judges also said that the cream in the cannoli was bland. So not good all the way around, unfortunately. What were your thoughts on that one?
When I saw it, I was like, she could have gone. I think she was trying to take her influences over in Italy and then what she does, culturally, and combine the two. And it didn't translate. I think if she would have done something that was rooted to, the Congo and what she's used to having and whatnot, I think that would have, done better. I personally, and again, it's so hard when you're looking at it, when in the mind of the chef, when they're at that moment, then they get stuck on it. They're gonna push through it. From the outside looking in, I would have probably done something else. I mean, but it's all an opinion. I mean, hell, someone could look at me when I'm cooking like, well, why did you do that dish? I have other ulterior motives. I'm like, I just had a cookbook come out. Like, I am doing Southern cooking with global flavors. Like, it's this my style that I do, and there's a purpose behind it. And so a challenge may not resonate for some people in the way that I may put that dish out, but the way I want to represent myself is how I want to do it. Like, for example, the publisher, James, that basically secured my deal through Rizzoli. He says, I love your approach. You did an amazing job. I love your approach on how you your Southern influences and with the global flavors. It definitely translated to even the way you competed. It was amazing to see. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to hear. Like, what if I didn't win? What did it look like to you? It looked like it was freaking amazing. She said it was amazing. You know what I mean? So sometimes, like, you have to stick to your guns. And I just think that hers just didn't translate the way it was supposed to. And I didn't get the combination. I didn't like what I saw, and I didn't think she would be on the top by any stretch. But I was like, they're in a different part of the country, the world. I mean, I know what the hell I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a reason why there's no Kangen Italian fusion places around, right? So, she was trying to fuse the two together, didn't quite work out, and she's on the bottom for it. And then Tom, which is the guy I thought should have been in the top three. This is right up his alley. He's in the bottom again. So he's in the bottom two twice in a row, or bottom three twice in a row now. He made something called the Mentor the Pumpkin, which kind of highbrow, trying to make a carrot, turmeric, pumpkin mousse chutney thing, and turned it into a gel, and then tried to form it into a pumpkin. And then he served it in this clear plastic box. And he didn't quite estimate the time for the mousse to defrost the way it should have, so you could eat it with any kind of dignity. But the judge said that the mousse was broken, the gel was falling apart. I didn't understand the message of Tom's dish. I don't remember if he even said what his message was. But it just, technique execution was not there. And if the mousse, Tom Colicchio actually did say if the mousse was set, he would have won the thing because the flavor was all there. So again, this is one of those things where Tom maybe got a little ahead of himself, maybe didn't give himself the right amount of time to finish this, but yeah, it didn't look good for him on this one.
I think he would have I think he used gelatin, and if he'd used agar, he would actually had a better outcome, because the agar holds better, even if once it warms up, it would have stayed the texture he wanted. But sometimes a lot of these European chefs are so used to doing a lot of different mousses that that's kind of like their wheelhouse. And Tom said what he said. But like he should have. You would think that he would have used another hydrocolloid that would actually be stable, which would have been the agar. Gelatin, as soon as heat hits it, it's just it doesn't matter how much you put in it. But agar it'll still hold, it'll be a little bit softer, and so I don't know.
Yeah, didn't work out for him. And then the one that was eliminated was Dale, which, right after he gets back from Last Chance Kitchen, gets kicked right back into Last Chance Kitchen again, which brings us right to Last Chance Kitchen, which I thought, so the last time it was Dale versus Begonia Last Chance Kitchen, and then we don't see Begonia anymore. So she's done. She's gone because it's Dale versus Sylvia that was eliminated last week. So long Begonia. She was well loved. I hate that she's not there. Kind of makes me sad because I loved her food and her approach to food, and I'm just sad I'm not going to be able to see it anymore. But oh well. So Dale versus Sylvia. So the challenge was to make their version of a classic omelet in 15 minutes. So there's a legend that goes around that chefs, when they get hired or when they're doing the job interview, they're forced to make an omelet, because if you can make an omelet well, then you can do everything well, because omelets are so temperamental, and they go from perfect custardy, curds to overcooked rubbery mess in a matter of seconds. So, you mentioned you hired a chef. Did you make him make an omelet?
No, but that's going to probably be a practical I'm going to start to do more often than not, because I have some chefs that need better skills at cooking eggs. We do a lot of brunch, especially at Red Rooster, and some of the chefs that may get on, their egg cookery hasn't been as great, and you take it for granted that everyone's gonna be able to do it. Oh, go over and jump on a station, and then all of a sudden you're getting reviews of bad eggs, and then the other chefs are letting these bad eggs go out, and it's like, yeah, I definitely agree. It's one of those things that you should be a lot better skilled at, and so yeah, I make great eggs. I love eggs. I've been cooking them since I was 3, so like I'm very passionate about it. So I get the challenge,
Yeah, I love a good omelet. I mean, my omelet making is horrible, but I love a good omelet. So Dale decides to go with a traditional omelet with chives, mushrooms, and a brown butter spinach puree. I thought he was going to put the mushrooms and spinach like in the omelet, but he served it as a side. And the puree, to me, the puree did not look good. It was like this little green thing in the middle of the plate, and it looked kind of unappealing. I mean, did you think the same?
Yeah, I think at that point he was already defeated. He was already just like his senses were just not like locked in, because I think if he was really paying attention, he would have not put that on the plate.
Yeah, I don't know how soon they film Last Chance Kitchen right after they get eliminated, but I mean, the omelet looked great. I just thought, put the mushrooms in there and make it a really good omelet. But that green thing, it was just this weird shade of green that just turned me off. I didn't like it. But I think what saved him was what Sylvia did, because Sylvia made something called an Arnold Bennett omelet. Never heard of it, but apparently it's named after a famous writer that stayed at a hotel that she was working in, and they named an omelet after him. So the eggs were cooked with smoked salmon, truffles, hollandaise sauce, and chives. Yeah, so not a traditional omelet. In fact, it was a baked egg dish, and so it was more of a scramble than an omelet. Which, scrambles are delicious, but it's not an omelet. And I think Tom Colicchio caught on to that and said, your eggs were way overcooked, and baking it in the oven just made it even more overcooked. So I don't know quite what she was thinking when she was going with it. So when he said make a traditional omelet, you make a traditional omelet. You don't make an omelet that you only heard of because you worked at the Savoy Hotel, and this British author happened to come in a lot and order his eggs this way, and you don't call it an omelet just because you want to call it an omelet. So I don't know. What do you think was going through Sylvia's head on this challenge?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, what's crazy to me is that the challenge is an omelet. Don't give me like something that's totally not an omelet. I mean, they've seen enough YouTube things and whatever with different chefs, or Gordon Ramsay doing a perfect omelet, or a Daniel Boulud, or a Jacques Pepin. Like there's a lot of demos out there. Wolfgang Puck. Listen to the rules. The rule says an omelet. Make a freaking beautiful omelet. Like Tom would have been like totally blown away if he would have seen a beautiful French omelet, rubbed with butter, little garnish of chives, and then and maybe like some cheese on the inside or something. And he took a bite and be like, he's that simple. That he's a purist. He loves other things, but give him great linguine and clams, and the clams are not gritty, and the clams are perfect, and they were just opened up, and the right amount of crushed pepper and parsley at the end, and the pasta's al dente, and it's using the pasta, like he's gonna be like. I remember he ended up doing a cooking thing, and he doesn't do it all the time. I forget what season it was, and he literally. I remember after he put the dish up, I remember sending me a message in his DM. I was like, Chef, just so you know, I saw what you cooked. And I said, and it's good to see, like, you know, you still, you know, have the skills and the presence to cook something perfect in a quick amount of time. And because everyone had to cook off of his time that it took him to make a dish. And he did it in like, it was like 8 or 9 minutes. It was like quick, and it was a beautiful dish. And I was like, yeah, he was all thanks, you know. And he was like, no, I appreciate that. You know, he said, I don't do that all the time, but you know, but that's why, you know, that's why he is who he is.
That's why it's Tom Colicchio, right?
That's right.
So Dale wins Last Chance Kitchen, and he has a chance to get back on the show. 2-time loser Dale could have a chance to get back on the show, which I'm not for sure how I feel about that just yet. I mean, I'm all for the underdog, but you got eliminated twice, my dude. I mean, this may not be for you.
Hey, look, don't feel bad. You can't win them all.
But a series of quick fires is very different from the challenges that are on the Top Chef proper. So who knows? We'll see what happens.
That's right. Let's see what happens.
Well, we did it. I got to say, I think this was probably my favorite episode to date. I just loved all the different whimsical dishes that were made, the fun that everybody seemed to be having, whether they were on the bottom or the top. It looked like the chefs genuinely were having fun with this challenge, and that's when you see some real magic happening in both the dishes and just what ends up being filmed, right? So yeah, I think it was one of my favorite to date. So we'll see what happens next week. We'll continue to see if Dale can stay king of the mountain and Last Chance Kitchen and fight his way back into the collective eye roll of all the rest of the contestants that he may be walking in front of. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Dale, you're a great guy. If you happen to be listening, just wasn't in the cards for you this time, but we'll see. Well, right. Kenny, Kanji McGee, thank you again for Kanji McGee. Thank you again for being on the show. Catch Chef Kenny Gilbert's cookbook, Southern Cooking Global Flavors, on bookshelves now. Went through a second printing, so very, very popular. A lot of people are loving it. So again, congratulations on that, and we'll talk again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.